Our good uncle, Dennis Dodd, dropped a good old-fashioned Dodd bomb yesterday. Everyone's getting ready for the NFL draft, and if you're not doing that, you're probably on vacation somewhere. And then Dennis Dodd, CBSSports.com, all of a sudden, listen to this headline, by the way. And imagine hearing this 10 years ago. Derek Dooley pitching G5 playoff backed by private equity firms. I think that is so bizarre, I want to read it again for my own amusement. Derek Dooley, former Tennessee head coach, check the orange pants for evidence. Derek Dooley pitching G5 playoff backed by private equity firms. Now, many of you have watched this show for a long time, and you know that there are a few drums that I have banged relentlessly. One of them has been, why don't we have a G5 playoff? That has always seemed like common sense to me. I've always thought it was one of the most mind-numbingly ignorant concepts imaginable to pretend that South Alabama is playing the same sport as the University of Alabama. But that's what we were forced to swallow as logic. And South Alabama is chasing the same championship, theoretically, that the University of Alabama is. Georgia State should have a shot at the same championship the University of Georgia is competing for. Now, I don't care if my mother has never absorbed a down of college football in her life. If I cut on a TV on Saturday and just show her the products on a split screen, she could tell you within the first half of the first quarter, the guys over here in blue and white look a little bit different than the guys in red and black. Yes, that's correct. They are playing the same sport in name only. You know, we've known this for a long time. So I've looked at that and I've said, instead of pretending 130 some odd teams are playing the same sport, why have we not long ago acknowledged that you got the SEC and the power whatever conferences you want to call them, and it's fair enough. Yeah, there's a gulf between Washington State and Florida, but at least we can somewhat accept they're chasing the same trophy. But man, past that, why are we trying to shoehorn and carve out specialization to make sure we have inclusion in this playoff for teams that have no shot at winning the whole thing and don't play a strength of schedule that's anywhere remotely comparable to what some of the big boys do? And instead, why haven't we just built a separate playoff for these teams here? And I was always told, Josh, that's not fair. What's not fair? And I always got silence. Well, you can't be telling teams they have no shot. I'm advocating the opposite. I'm advocating telling them they do have a shot at something that they can actually obtain. You can. I don't care how often you tell Coastal Carolina, yeah, technically you can qualify for the national championship. You simulate this thing a million times. Coastal Carolina's not winning a title. Like, what are we talking about? In that setup, they could. Anyway, I was always shouted down. Only when the threat of bigger disparity in revenue entered the equation did these people finally start to say, you know what, light bulb above the head. Why don't we explore a G5 playoff? And at this point, my mouth just hangs open and I'm like, whatever. However we have to get there, we get there. But then I wonder about the details. And so that's what's not ironed out here. Dennis was very quick to point out in his report, this is nowhere near finalized, but it is being discussed. And the conference commissioners for a lot of the, what you would call the G5 level, they're starting to discuss it. Here's my advice. My advice is don't wait. Don't wait. In other words, don't think you have to live downstream from the big boys. If you've got that private equity money, and I know that's not ideal. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. I know all that. I will repeat it 3 times so you don't have to. Stay ahead of the curve would be my advice. Losers, here's a great Meemaw quote for you. Losers focus on the hurdles. Winners just learn how to jump higher. You got to learn how to jump higher. You cannot pretend that you live in the same world as the Big Ten and the SEC. You don't. You never have. You never will. If that makes you feel bad, it doesn't make it any less true. So I've always thought we should have a G5 playoff. I still hope we can get a G5 playoff because the future looks no different than the past in a sense that you guys aren't going to win this thing. You may have inclusion. There may be some special carve out where you have to be given a spot in the playoff. Is it really something to be celebrated if a carve out had to be put inside the contract for you to obtain it? All of us in this room knowing full well you otherwise never would have obtained it. Don't play in their world. Create your own world. And look, I keep watching pro spring football leagues pop up all over the place. If there's enough money to back that, I promise you there's enough money to back a G5 playoff. So I've spoken my piece on that.